Welcome to Intriguing Beings, a new podcast with me, Roo Chater. Over the last 20 years, I have been lucky enough to meet and interview a host of interesting people. This summer, I decided to record some of these conversations for a new podcast. Episode 2, with Dave Hastilow. I'm really excited about this next podcast, mainly because when I set out to do this, I didn't just want to interview pro riders. I wanted to talk to people from across the water sports industry, and maybe even further afield. The goal was always interesting and inspiring people, and my next guest is certainly that. Kiteboarding is such a unique sport. It's so incredibly addictive. You can see it in the eyes of someone who first flies that big, powerful kite. They get that wild look. The number of people I have met who have quit their jobs, changed their lives and followed the wind over the years is incredible. I even count myself amongst that list. My next guest is David Hastilow, and he epitomises what I've just said more than most. You might have heard of him, but probably not. 20 years ago, Dave learned to kitesurf. Like so many of us, he became hooked and fell in love with the sport. From those humble beginnings, he has gone on to become the division manager for Cabrinha, one of the biggest kiteboarding brands in the business, and he's second only to Pete Cabrinha, the driving force behind the brand. Some of you listening to this might have just learned to kitesurf yourselves. Imagine where the next 20 years might take you. Dave's incredible journey was fueled by the amazing ability to say yes, even when it meant uprooting his wife and missing out on a house they'd put a deposit on, or when saying yes meant leaving the idyllic life in the Caribbean to return to England. Dave's a yes man, and it's taken him a long way, arguably to one of the top jobs in the kiteboarding business. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be a tester for a kite brand and get paid to kitesurf all day long, then this one's for you too. I really hope you enjoy this next podcast, and don't forget to subscribe, share it on social media, and tell your friends about it. I'm sat here in a very hot van that's probably going to get hotter with Dave Hastilow from Cabrinha.
Hello.
I first met Dave quite a long time ago now, back in sort of kite surfing early days. And he's got quite an interesting story of where he's been and what he's up to. So I thought he'd be an interesting person to chat to for this series. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to ask Dave is, I seem to recall like you living on a Caribbean island, and then you somehow got persuaded to come back to the UK by Chris Martin, I believe.
Yeah, I was based in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, we wanted to leave St. Lucia. It was just kind of got to the end of it and we figuring out where to go. And we came back to England and met up with Chris and did the UK for 6 months until I was lucky enough to get a phone call, which was the next stage, the next generation.
And so when you were in St. Lucia, what were you doing there?
I was kiting a lot.
Yeah.
There was a ton of kiting. I was acting as a sales rep for Cabrinha in the Caribbean.
Okay, so the whole of the Caribbean kind of area.
Kind of the windward, so pretty much St. Martin downwards.
Yeah.
Was kind of like my territory.
And how did you end up, because you're British originally, right?
Yeah.
So you got a British passport. So how on earth did someone like you end up in St. Lucia selling kitesurfing gear?
I had a shop in the UK. I had a shop in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, we kind of the weather was not so great and we decided to, we sold our shop. My family sold, my parents sold their business and we all just emigrated. We moved to St. Lucia.
Oh, wow.
We just took a chance and we went out and we based out there and we did 7 years, like me and my wife in St. Lucia. And then we left. My family's still there.
Oh, really? So they stayed?
They stayed. Because they retire, they go to the coffee shop.
So what on earth did Chris Martin say? And Chris Martin, for those who don't know who he is, he's the UK Cabrinha rep. Who, if you cut him in half, he'd be like a stick of rock with Cabrinha written all around the inside of him. But what on earth did he say to get you to come from St. Lucia to the UK?
I think it was part of that. He was just wanted some help over here, so we come back for Cabrinha to help out here. And then my wife's family's all from here. So it's just an easier place to come. And I don't know, I had a little taste of it, like the UK scene before. Yeah. And it was pretty awesome. So it was awesome. We came back, it's the whole van culture we had. Yeah. 6 months with the BKSA.
Yeah, traveling
with
around
those guys, and it was incredible actually.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's replicated anywhere else. It was so unique.
Really,
and it's
so the UK scene that you get here, where everyone's traveling to events and having
amazing.
competitions and stuff. You don't really see that.
Maybe I just haven't been into those places, but the UK with them, there was something so special about it. And actually coming back to this event now is the same. Like I see everyone like camped up, and it's the same people actually.
Yeah,
a lot of the original guys who were doing it back then are still going, and it's a pretty incredible atmosphere.
It is quite funny, the amount of faces that you see. I mean, it's the kite surfing Armada this weekend, which is probably the biggest UK kite surfing event on the calendar. And yes, it's hard to even get anywhere without shaking hands with someone or bumping into someone and just like, oh yeah, I haven't seen you for ages. Oh, what are you up to? And what's going on and everything like that. It's kind of it's tricky to go anywhere, and it's nice that there is that kind of scene. It goes up and down and peaks and troughs, but it certainly seems to be quite vibrant at the moment. Yeah. And so you mentioned that when you're in the UK, you're working with Chris, you're kind of helping out with Cabrinha in the UK in that format, and then you got a call. I
did. I'd literally just put a deposit down on a flat.
Oh, no way.
Boscombe.
No way.
and like a week later, I got a phone call it was actually from the guys in Hong Kong, just saying that if I'm interested, there's a job position and I got to fly out to Maui.
Wow.
And it was like Boscombe,
Maui,
and we chose Maui.
Yeah, I can understand that. And so that was quite a while ago now.
That was, it's going to be 8, 9, maybe 9 years ago.
Wow.
Is when that happened. And then, we just moved out and we did a year in and out of Maui. And then they moved me to Hong Kong.
Right.
So I was based in Hong Kong for...
That's not quite the dream ticket.
Not the same, but I don't know. It's a pretty awesome place to travel from. So we got Bali was 3 hours away.
Okay, so good surf on your doorstep.
Pretty fun. And I don't know. I learned a lot. I worked in the factory. So you get to see how everything's manufactured and all that.
And Cabrinha have their own factory, right, for manufacturing kites?
Yeah, Pride Group Performance. We have a factory performance manufacturing, and we do all our kites. And it's awesome for us because we can actually develop stuff as to what we want. You have our own facility. We have a sample room where we can go in and try things. And so it's been... That side that's really good to know, and that's helped. Actually knowing how the factory works helps with everything else.
And so you end up in Hong Kong. How long were you in Hong Kong for?
5 years. I was going to be there for 1 year.
Yeah.
And then I was going to then I was transferring over to Hawaii, and it turned into 5.
And how did because Rachel, your wife, how did she feel about? Oh, we're going to Maui, and then no, we're in Hong Kong for 5 years. Was she all right with that?
She was all right, actually, because like I said, Hong Kong at the beginning was super fun.
Yeah.
And it was just me and her, and it's pretty happening place. Like it doesn't stop. There's always something you can do, and traveling was good. It changed a little bit when our son was born.
Yeah.
But at that point, we knew that the change was coming. And
that you were going to go back to Maui.
Back to Maui. So
okay.
So when that happened, that was pretty awesome. That was just over 4 years ago.
So you've done the last 4 years in Maui.
In Maui.
Wow. And so let's talk a little bit about your role with Cabrinha, having sort of learned how you've got there in a very meandering path. Obviously saying yes at the right moments to the right things that have led you to that point. But now you're, I know when you first went over there, it was part of the product testing. You were sort of chief tester kind of thing for Cabrinha. So what does that involve? Like, that sounds probably to most people like a dream job. Oh, I'm the chief tester for a kite company. But is it the dream job? Is it as good as it sounds, or is it a lot of hard work?
It's pretty... I'm not going to say it's a bad job, because it was actually pretty amazing. You get to kite all the time. It's not as great as you think, because a lot of times you're riding products you wouldn't normally, in your style of riding, want to ride, and you have to rack up hours, and then the stuff which comes out, which you got to do certain things to, which you don't really want to go out and do a full pack down in the ocean in Hawaii when there's like fish with teeth swimming around and all that kind of stuff, and you got to do it
because you've got to test it and make sure it works,
do all that kind of thing, and put it through the ringer, and then there's a ton of paperwork, that's the one side of it, which isn't so much fun. You spend so much time writing reports and documenting the stuff, but I can't say it was a really bad job. It was pretty amazing, actually.
What's the sort of process, I guess, from we get to live in this great age where kites these days are pretty fantastic, and bars all work and boards are brilliant, and kite surfing equipment's evolved so much from back in the beginning. What's the process for a company like Cabrinha from sort of coming up with an idea to get to that point of you actually then testing it, then refining it, and then getting it into a customer's hands?
There's a lot. We go from, like, we have every year we do a range plan.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of gets involved, and the commercial team and the product team all get together, and we try to figure out what we need, and we look at the market and see if there's anything we need. And if we decide that we want to do a product, like say if we want to design a new kite, put the design briefs together, so that's all created, and then it goes to the designer. And from there, we just work on, like, our kite designer will make up the samples. Then we go with them and we test them and tie bridles. And we ended up, I don't know, like a new kite, if you were to do, let's say, we start on a 9. It's like the easiest kite to fly pretty much in all the places where we test. And we do maybe 10 9-meter kites.
Yeah.
And then you branch off into the other side. So as there's the 9s running, we start to do 12s, and we do 12 has got like probably 5 kites you make of that.
Yeah, so and those are prototypes.
They're all prototypes.
So it's like 10 prototypes, 5 prototypes, and you've just got this.
Each one's different, and this is the thing in testing is when you're doing this kind of side, it's pretty tough. Like you go out, you do like 2 runs on a kite, you come in, you land the kite, and the kite designer changes the bridle. You go back out, you do 2 runs, you come in, land the kite.
Tell him what was different.
Tell him what was different. If he agrees with you, oh, it's not that thing, you tie another bridle, and you go back out, and it's, you're doing like 6-7 hour sessions of just
doing that
in and out. So that's probably the worst part.
So in terms of that. Yeah, so although it's a lovely job, it is a job.
It is
at the end of the day.
Sure.
It's something that you're doing that's work. Yeah,
and you're watching everyone else
having a nice time.
And that was the thing, like when I used to teach kiting, it used to drive me nuts. It was like you're teaching and you're looking at everyone else enjoying the conditions, and testing can be the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then there's another side where you actually get to jump on the water, and you got to rack up hours on something. You got to
so you're literally just flying it just to keep using it, and you're riding how you want to ride, where you want to ride.
And
that's the good bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You get the icing on the cake when it comes together. And it must be quite a satisfying thing to kind of work on a lot of these products and then see them when they're finished and get the customer feedback and stuff.
That's the main one, is we have it every year when we do meetings like this time of year where we show the new product ranges for like the next season. And we've seen it for like a year or a year and a half in some cases. So you know this stuff and you kind of take it for granted. And then when you show it to people, and you see how like stoked and excited they are and what's coming and what's new, it's the most rewarding thing.
That's the magic bit.
It's pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and you get great feedback, you get negative feedback for sure on some things, but that's also really good because then you know how to improve your product. So. Yeah, I love it. I love seeing people use our stuff. It's a really
awesome,
nice feeling.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's sort of I guess that's the job satisfaction aspect of it. Is that you're working on something that gives someone so much joy.
It's the best part.
Yeah. And you get people come up to you at the beach and be like, because in Maui, I guess there's a lot of people that ride Cabrinha. So you're on the beach. People must know you're the tester. Do they give you positive feedback and sometimes maybe negative?
You get all sorts. You get a lot of feedback. Yeah, you get a lot of positive feedback. They obviously in Maui they get a little lucky. They get to see what you're developing. It's kind of we do our prototypes. They're not graphicked up and stuff, but they get to see it. So we get comments all the time, and then you get some negative comments. But
sort this kite out, Dave.
But then the other one is they're like, oh, this isn't flying right. So then you end up tuning bars and you do all this kind of stuff as well.
Tweaking it for them so it does fly right, I guess.
It's all part of it, and it's all part of the fun of it, to be honest.
Yeah. And over the years in Maui, it's an amazing place. It's known as the Mecca of water sports, really. I mean, it's just a hub for pretty much everything. Have you ever had any... you mentioned shark with teeth and having to do deep water pack downs. Have you ever had any scary moments where it's all gone wrong for you out there and you've just gone, I've had fucked up a bit here?
Maybe. I've had a couple.
Something you'd rather not talk about.
Nothing happened. Like it ended up okay, but I got in a bit of a mess once on an outer reef and ended up losing everything. I lost my board, I lost my kite, and had to swim in. And I was swimming in near the harbour, which is like
the sharkiest
spot, and it's you can't get it out of your head.
It's in there,
and you kind of like I'm swimming in. I'm like, do I swim fast? And then I'm in quicker,
Do I swim slow and smooth?
Yeah, or do I swim slow and smooth? But then the turtle swims slow and smooth. And you're just like, oh my God. And when I got to the beach, I was pretty happy.
Yeah, you're like stoked to get back. And how far out were you on an outer reef?
It took me probably 40 minutes to swim in. Ooh. But it was a big day, so there's a huge current ripping and stuff.
A lot of water moving around.
Yeah, and it was late in the day, so you make that mistake once and then
don't make it
again.
And what was the mistake you made?
It was just later in the day.
I
didn't. Just a lot. I was in the wrong place. It was busy where I was kiting, and then I saw an emptier wave. Like it's it's this wave closer to the harbour, and there's no one down there. That's maybe the first mistake.
Yeah.
Is to go solo. And then I got down there and the wind gets lighter as you get further closer to the harbour.
Right.
So I was underpowered and it was big and...
Not enough power to get you out of trouble.
Type board, which I lost completely.
Oh, no.
First day. The board designer called me in the morning. He's like, the board's ready. Go ride it today and give me your feedback. And that was the first day. And
it was
I
gone.
Just like, sorry, it's vanished.
Did you say that board was rubbish? I ended up in trouble.
Yeah, I was like,
it was all the board's fault.
Well. Yeah. if that board was good, I'd have been fine. I'd have made it.
Oh, that must be pretty scary when you're swimming in that kind of situation.
There's a few.
You're right. You can't get it out of your head. I've only been to Maui once. It was 2005. And I remember when I was just body dragging to get my board, I was just thinking, this is the most stupid thing to be doing. I'm trawling around as if I wanted to catch a shark. I'd attach a human to a bit of string and drag it around, which is what I'm doing. It's nuts. But it's also a stunningly beautiful place. I know you're quite into your mountain biking and, there's a lot of other sports that you can do there. Yeah. So how long have you been riding bikes over there?
Pretty much since I moved there, I got into it. And I grew up in the Isle of Man, so we had like a big road racing scene and then mountain biking kind of kicked off there. So I've always ridden bikes, and then Maui has got, they have a trail. There's not much trail in Maui, it's pretty private land.
Okay.
So that's the one negative, but what they've done is they've built a pretty nice area.
So it's pretty usable.
So it's really good. And they had some guys come over from the West Coast and they built like a flow trail up there and it's pretty incredible actually. So
awesome. It's
pretty fun.
That's
I've had
cool.
a couple of spills. That's not so much fun.
Even crashes.
Yeah, that made me realise I need a better helmet, so that was good.
Yeah, that is always a good thing to have when you're mountain biking. Don't scrimp on the lid.
Yeah, for sure. that was the one mistake I made. So
you can never have too much body armour either if you're going to go in.
I'm covered. I'm head to toe covered.
Well, you're a family man now, so you've got to be.
But then my son's doing it, so that's the coolest thing. He's like 6.
How old is he? 6?
Yeah, and he's
like seagull on the roof.
Yeah, he's 6 and he just loves mountain biking. So awesome. he cycles up. He's ripping up a hill, which is the one thing I hated to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then he comes down does half of the trail coming down with me and stuff. So
awesome.
That's the best part.
I guess because with mountain biking, it's quite a sociable sport when you've got kids because you can watch them, you can be with them, you can talk them through it and stuff like that, which with kite surfing, it's such a singular sport. When you're out in the water, it's windy, it's noisy, it's hard to talk to people at the best of times.
You're pretty much solo. It's only on the beach you're chatting away.
You're chatting away on the beach and then you're not. So I guess that's the cool thing about mountain biking. And then I know we touched on it a little bit last night when we met, but the whole surf foiling thing, Maui's the birth child of most things, it seems, and now everyone's surf foiling. So you mentioned you resisted for a while, but now you're fully addicted.
Yeah, I got Pete's been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you think about it, Pete's been doing it for
a really long time.
Quite a long time for surf foiling. But the newer generation, he did it, started it last year, and he was trying to get me to go out and kind of put it off. I was kind of happy just regular surfing, and then I don't know. Eventually this year, James was out, and we just went out one day, and that's it. Once you start this thing, it's so addictive.
Yeah.
It just takes, I drove past the other morning, I drive past Hokeeper every morning, and I normally surf every morning, and it was head high, glassy, 10 people out, and I drove straight past it to go to the harbour, it's a harbour with 1 foot white water, mushy waves, sharks, all this kind of stuff, and that's where I drove to. I just didn't even...
Rather that than 10-foot clean, glassy Hokeeper.
It's just insane. It was just...
The feelings.
Because the day before I'd had the best surf session, the foil session, and that was it. You get this feeling and you're like, oh, I'm on it.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to master? Because I've tried a bit of sup foiling. I haven't tried prone foiling yet. But I can imagine that the paddle and the pop is the hardest thing that you've got to get dialed into?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, if you surf, the paddling is and the pop side is pretty similar to surfing.
Okay.
In terms of that part. Straight after that is a whole different
ball game.
And then so you kind of start off like you'd be surfing, and then the next section is, once you get to your feet, it's like kite falling.
Yeah.
And everything's on your front foot, and you got to slow all your movements down. But yeah, it didn't take long. I think like the first day, my first wave I actually got going, and I was just surfing, and I was doing little lifts.
Yeah, so just like dolphining,
just little tiny lifts, and it made the whole wave, and I was like, oh my god, I've nailed this. This is so sick. The next one was just the biggest yard sail I've had, and
the crashes look hideous.
Yeah, I was overconfident. And like
just thought I've got this,
underexperienced, and yeah, I thought I had it, and I literally like stood to my feet, slammed on my back foot to get up, like foiling, and then it just went.
Really Have you had any mishaps? Because I know there's a few scars going around.
I've got like bits missing and scars on my legs, and for sure,
but no facial damage.
No, I took.
Yeah, you took.
I've got a really good tuck going on right now.
Right, as soon as
the arms go around the back of the head, and I put my knees up, and I just go full fetal.
Yeah,
and it's
get your face out of the way.
It kind of helps a little bit. But I don't know, it's there. But once you learn to just like relax and not be aggressive with it, then it starts to work, and it's insane. Like, it is so unbelievably addictive, and everyone's now it's like growing at a rapid rate in Maui.
So it's becoming this huge thing.
It's huge, and it's kind of like when kiting started, where everyone was innovating and everyone was trying like crazy out there stuff. That's what you see. Like every day you go out, a guy paddles out on like a 3'5" board he just shaped like
last night,
the night before, and he paddles out and then realizes it doesn't work because it's 3'5" and he's hanging off of the front of it. And guys are making their own wings out of like getting mahogany, and they're like
really just like anything,
machining wings up, and it's insane.
You guys are 3D printing, you mentioned, like 3D printing and then laminating over the top to give it a bit of strength.
So that's pretty cool. It gives you pretty much in like 3 days you can probably have a turnaround on a wing. It's like a day to print it.
Yeah.
And then you got to laminate it. It takes a little bit longer.
Give it a bit of strength. And just, you were sort of almost talking a little bit about product again, but you mentioned your role. You know, obviously you started being a tester for Cabrinha, and then your role's changed, and now you're, you mentioned division manager.
Yeah.
So that's you're sort of the head man just below Pete, I guess. Yeah. You're working with Pete.
I work with Pete on now. Yeah, so we've got Pete's the brand manager, and he's like, he's the guy behind the brand is. Pete. So there's all the forwards thinking and all this kind of stuff, and where the brand needs to be and things. And I kind of do the day-to-day operations and all that kind of side, and the push on the sales. And
so you're doing a lot more kind of paperwork now than...
There's a little bit. I'm really good at it. I'm getting better on Excel. My fingers are super strong. Like, I'm
you've got your Excel spreadsheet down.
Oh, it's insane. I can copy paste all day long. Insert rows and insert columns.
Auto sum. Yeah. You know, all the shortcuts.
That's the one. Auto sum's been the savior. Once I figured that out.
And do you still get to, what's the sort of, a lot of people probably think, oh, wow, I'd love to work for a kite brand. How's the balance with working for a kite brand? Because obviously it's still a job. You guys produce a massive amount of equipment, so there's obviously a huge amount of work that goes into that. How much time do you get to go surf foiling, to go kiteboarding, to go mountain biking? Like, what's the work-life balance like on Maui?
Yeah, it's kind of, in the mornings, like, I always try to jump in the water in the morning, do something. So, if there's waves, I'll surf or surf foil, or even mountain bike.
And what sort of time are we talking about? Is that
try to get in the water at 7?
Okay, so not stupidly early.
No, I can't. I'm not.
You can't
do
early
person.
You're not one for those dorm raids.
I know guys paddle out in the dark, and I just can't get my head around that. It's too early.
Yeah,
I'm not really into that one. But yeah, so go out from 7 to 8:30, and then Maui's such a small place. It doesn't take long to get in the work, and then it just depends what's going on. If there's a lot going on, then you can pretty much be in an office all day.
Yeah.
To the end. If not, maybe we try to get out if the wind's up or something. Sometimes now I'm not testing as much, but there's times when we've got a product and everyone needs to get on it and give feedback.
Yeah, so you have to go out.
We have to go out
as a work-related kite session,
which is
that's nice.
It's pretty good.
And then what times are you sort of finishing? Do you get
finish work? That's pretty late. We do. It's 6 o'clock. Yeah, the normal is when we kind of finish. But I don't know. We're on touch with around the world, and Maui to Europe is pretty bad times. The difference is 12 hours. So there's a lot of times we do evenings. So you have to work with our distribution in Europe, and you do evening time. And a lot of times they're doing their evenings and our mornings, and
so sort of working around it a bit.
But it's, I don't know, it's just part of it. It's part of being in this industry, and I don't know. It's just, that's why we do it. We do it for the love of the sport and love of the product, and don't mind those sacrifices. Yeah,
and it's not a massive sacrifice to make, is it?
Not huge. Yeah, as long as the family's happy, and to be honest, they're asleep by 9 o'clock. Maui is this sleepy place. At 9 o'clock, it's all done.
It is. I noticed that when I went there. I remember we were there for the 2005 Red Bull King of the Air, and we discovered something called Quiet Time, which was in Spreckersville where we were staying. And basically, because we were talking, not even having a raucous party, the neighbours got very upset that we weren't in bed asleep by 9 o'clock, because it's quiet. And they were literally knocking on the door going, "Hey, it's quiet time." And I remember one journalist from the Times newspaper got told off for typing after 8:30. They said, you're typing really loudly, it's quiet time.
Did he bring like a big massive
it was 2005, so maybe it was an old typewriter or something like that. But anyway, the final night we ended up filling the hot tub full of washing up liquid and breaking it and partying until about 4 a.m, so they got their fill of us. But yeah, I can see how everyone goes to bed early on Maui, because I guess you want to get up late and do, or get up early so you can make the most of the sessions before work.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's dark. It gets dark at, like, summertime at 7 o'clock at night. It's dark.
Wow. So you can't even really kite after work if you're finishing at 6. So you've got to get that morning session.
Pretty much just the morning is the main one.
And it's not windy in the mornings over there, is it?
No, so it's pretty much just... And actually, there's certain areas you can't even
kite.
Like Kanaha area, you're not allowed to kite before 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So I guess from a kiting point of view, you surf in the mornings or ride your mountain bike, and then in the afternoons, if you're lucky, you'll get to go with work. Yeah. And then you've got the weekends. So weekends you can do what you want, I guess, and you're in an amazing playground.
It's insane. The weekends is so much to do, and that's the cool thing in Maui. Like, you can go to the forest, which is where we mountain bike. It's like up the hill, the temperature drops. It's super nice. Or you can just hit the ocean and do that, and you go everywhere. There's like different sides of the island and different waves to go surf, and awesome. It's pretty amazing spot. For a little island, there's a lot to offer. So
that's pretty cool. What would you say is the toughest thing about your job and what you do? Like, what's the hardest thing about it?
Probably right now with this new job, the hardest thing is travel. And it sounds strange where you say to people that you got to travel a lot, and it's kind of this luxurious thing, but I don't know, when like this trip, I'm away for a month in total, so it's kind of a long time.
That's
away
tough
from
when you're away from the family and you've got a 6-year-old lad.
It's super, super tough. So I'd say that's the hardest part. But then the other side of it is travel's pretty rewarding. Yeah. So you get to like come to this kind of event and
catch up with old friends.
That's pretty amazing. So I think next year I'm just going to bring the family. Yeah. And then it makes that side.
It's
not
a problem.
Issues at all. So. And the cool thing is, this time of year in America is school holidays, so it's not school holidays in England. Yeah. So it's pretty good for us.
Yeah, so that works quite well. And what would you say is the best thing about living on Maui? Like, what makes it such a pinnacle spot that everyone sort of is drawn towards, I guess?
The conditions are insane. It's like you've got wind, I don't know, it's probably 300 days a year is windy. And then you got surf in the winter. You actually got surf in the summer when it comes from, like, the south swells come up. So the conditions are out of this world, but it's mostly just the people. Everyone's like-minded. Yeah. And this was something I found, like, when, I don't know, growing up in the Isle of Man. There's a scene. There was definitely a surf scene and that water sports scene, but it was pretty small. It's like a small group, and kind of got looked at funny if you had stuff strapped on the roof of your car or all those kind of things. And in Maui, it's the norm. If you don't
have something strapped on, what you're doing.
That sounded super bad. Maybe. Depends on what circles you go in.
Everyone's got strap-ons in Maui.
I'm normally asleep by 9 o'clock, so I'm probably missing those parties.
Missed that scene. You missed that scene. Oh, you got to stay up. But yeah, I guess it's got that whole waterman feel going on, isn't it? And like you say, I mean, I was only there a short time, but I could see the potential of, like, everyone is on that same vibe. What's the visa situation like? Because that's
pretty tricky.
One thing that puts me off the US as a place to get to and to spend time is it's quite a hard place to get in. So I guess Cabrinha looked after you and helped out there a bit.
Yeah, the visa was the hardest one. So that's why I was in Hong Kong, because we worked on a transfer visa.
Okay.
So you do so long working in Hong Kong, which is the Pride Group's head office is actually there. And then I'm on a transfer visa, so it's a transfer to a regional office, which is Maui.
The Maui one.
So that's the hardest part. For visiting, it's actually pretty easy with Esther.
Yeah.
You kind of just
cruise
over,
in.
you get like 3 months and you can come in and out really easy. But the visa, to be there for long term, the visa is definitely that's a hard one.
Yeah,
for sure. And we're just now going through the process of changing again. It never seems to stop.
Do you think you'll end up becoming a US resident or anything like that? Is that on the cards?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a lot, and we want to be there for the long term, and we love it. It's amazing. For my son, it's probably the best place to grow up.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to grow up and be just a ridiculously talented surfer, mountain biker,
maybe
outdoors kid. Maybe
he loves the outdoors, and that's the one big thing for us. Like he wants to spend all day outside.
Yeah,
and as long as he's doing that, I'm happy with whatever he's doing, pretty much. So
yeah,
and it's awesome. He's growing up with kids over there who the level is unbelievable. The Groms over there are just charging like everything, and there's kids in his school and kids he's playing with, and it's just such a cool mix of everybody for him to grow up with. And yeah, there's so much.
That's a really good environment, isn't it? When you think, in the UK, I guess a lot of kids who go to school and over here, football's the big thing.
Yeah.
So all the kids are playing football and they're kicking balls around and they're looking up to these aspirational football stars who maybe some people would argue aren't the best people to look up to with their behaviours and their millions of pounds. Well, I guess in Maui, the thing is surfing and you're looking up to, all the surfers rather than a bunch of footballers or something like that. So it's a completely different environment.
Depends where you are, really. Yeah, so that's kind of how it is for him growing up. It's just so many, you got like all this, the young generation of like Albie Lair and Matt Miola surfing and what they're doing. That's sparked off the next generation of kids.
Yeah.
And then there's a younger generation coming through now who you're surfing with these kids and they're throwing airs like right in front of you and just pulling into like waves. You're like, oh, that's a bit sketchy. And this kid will just like drop in and get barreled out of his mind. And
just be like, no big thing.
Nothing. It doesn't even faze him. It doesn't hold back. And
wow.
It's incredible. It's pretty motivating.
That is pretty awesome.
It's a little demoralizing when you think you're doing well as well, though, and some like 6-year-old kid shows you how it's really done.
Yeah. But
that's age, really.
That is age. Just I'm on my longboard now.
I'm kind of accepting that now.
Yeah.
So having a kid made me accept that.
Yeah.
I know he's going to get better than me at everything.
Yeah. At one point, they're just going to be leaving you in their dust. You're going to be like, what are you doing hitting that jump? That's crazy. Yeah. Or, taking on waves that you wouldn't even dream about going out in.
Yeah, right now, I'm milking it, so... When
you're better than him,
yeah,
so
my wife's
like,
no, you got to take it easy. I'm like, no way,
I'm living this.
In a year's time, I'm losing everything. So.
Have you signed him up to Strava yet, so you can tell him you're beating him on the mountain time you ride? That'd be a good one. Be like, I'm quicker than you. I'm quicker than you. I'm quicker than you.
I think I've still got the up on him. Because he hasn't got that many gears, so he's in a bit of trouble.
That's the other thing. Give him a really heavy bike.
That's for sure.
With no gears, tiny wheels. Yeah, there you go. Come on, keep up.
Fine. But on the down, I know he's going to get me for sure. It's going to be bad then.
It's always the changing of the guard, I guess, isn't it, with kids coming through? It's amazing the sort of level and talent that they have.
Yeah, it's insane.
And would you say that you're happy over there in Maui?
Yeah, I love it. It's one of the hardest things in Maui is just you're away from family.
Yeah. And
like my family, they're in the Caribbean still, and my wife's family's in the UK. So you're pretty remote. It's pretty isolated in Maui. So that's a tricky thing, but I don't know. Skype works pretty well, and we get to travel, and so we just go to try to visit as much as we can and things. But otherwise, super happy. It's kind of awesome. The place to be, and I don't regret it one little bit. Yeah,
looking back on it all, is there anything you'd have ever changed, or do you think you made all the right decisions at the right time?
I don't know. It's funny because I don't know. I always think everything happens for a reason, and literally everything has happened, and it's like led to where we are now. And I couldn't change one thing. Yeah, it's always been. I think everything's worked in our favor, and there's been some tough times for sure. It always is, but I look back now, and it kind of made who we are and got us to where we are. So I wouldn't change one thing, to be honest.
Perfect. It's kind of an interesting story, isn't it? Because when you think about it, you were a kiteboarding instructor.
Yeah.
And now you're the division manager at Cabrinha in the space of what, probably 20 years, less than that.
Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty incredible. And from the Isle of Man as well, which is.
And from the Isle of Man, which for people listening who don't know where that is, if you look up the Isle of Man TT, that's about what it's famous for. But it's also famous for being a little bit weird, and a little bit strange, and a little bit out on its own.
It's a little out on its own. It's kind of like the Isle of Man is similar to Maui. It's not as remote, but when you're on it, it feels as remote as
Maui with bad weather.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, the weather's nowhere near the same. It's windy though, and the wind is cranking on the island.
So it's good for kiting.
It was pretty good. Yeah, it's super windy spot.
Awesome.
Just
lack the sunshine.
Yeah, it happened like 4 days a year.
So would you swap Maui for the Isle of Man? No way.
No. But I'd love to go back to the Isle of Man to visit. I haven't done that for like 15 years. So one day.
One day we'll check it out.
I'll wait till my son's older, and then I'm going to take him over and let him experience.
Well, maybe we can do a surf trip there.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
That'd be pretty good.
I've never seen any content come out of that neck of the woods.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
It's the hidden secret.
The hidden secret. Well, look, thanks for that, Dave. That's been really interesting. I've enjoyed that, having a little catch up and hearing about some of your stories and things. We're getting pretty hot in this band now, so I think we'll wrap it up there.
It's kind of warm, isn't it?
I feel sorry. I don't think I'm going to persuade Pete to come in here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He's not going to manage that.
How hot it gets.
I'm going to have to find somewhere else to do that one. But yeah, we'll work it out there. So thanks for that. We'll leave it there and catch up with you soon.
Perfect.
I hope you enjoyed that. Sitting down with Dave in the Ford Transit Custom van really made me think about the opportunities life sometimes throws at you. And if you don't say yes every now and then, you never know what you might miss out on. If you enjoyed this, then please subscribe, share it with your friends, and help me spread the word. In case you missed last week's episode with Nick Jacobson, you can find it online in all the usual places, and it's definitely one to check out. Until next week, you've been listening to Roo Chater and the Intriguing Beings podcast.